So yeah, once again, late because of food.
Yeah,
But I had gotten a pizza after work at Food Lion, so we cooked it and ate it and it was really good.
yeah, and caused us to yeah. We should always say. Well, I think we did say that time we have
Then
a
we were
little
gonna
window,
Yeah, we were gonna
right?
be live between 7:30
7:30
and
and 8.
8.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's the time that we're showing up. So as always, welcome to Two Chicks Tell All. It's your girl Tay Tay.
yeah, Cece.
So we're gonna do a more serious topic tonight just because I feel like we kind of gotta do a serious one every now and then.
Yeah,
I mean, it's good to be fun and silly and cut up and laugh and all that. There's no problem with that. But I feel like if we're going to cover it all, we have to cover the good, the bad, the ugly.
right. Yeah.
So, in order to kind of achieve what we want to do, that's what we got to do. Hey, Chris. Chris is here.
Hey, Chris.
So yeah, that's what we're going to do. So I did a little poll on our YouTube wall, actually, like on our community wall, about what tonight's topic should be. And this is actually what the viewers chose. So we're going to be going over trauma and PTSD in regards to relationships. So just a little disclaimer. I know that, some of our viewers have been through some stuff and all of that. So I completely understand that. So if you're triggered at all by this type of stuff, I might recommend that you sit out during this one, but like I said, since we're two chicks tell all, we have to tell all. So, you know, I understand if like this type of stuff might be a little bit too much for some of our viewers, but we like to be informational and we
Right.
like
Yeah.
to present different types of topics. So in order to do that, you kind of have to get into some very deep subjects sometimes.
Yes.
So that's what we're doing. So I have just some information about trauma and PTSD in regards to relationships. I have a little bit of personal experiences whenever it comes to this because there have been a couple relationships where I have been emotionally abused, which, you don't have to be hit to be abused, in
Right.
my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
Like, there's many other ways that, you can be abused. And I feel like emotional abuse is really bad. Like, it can really mess with someone's head. So I have been through that kind of stuff, so I can kind of understand this topic a little bit. And I know that CC just has some different, I guess, is it statistics
Yeah,
for
some
us?
stats and
Yeah.
stuff on kind of like why people do stay in abusive relationships. And I will start off by giving this number and information and then ending it with this information is if you do or know someone that needs to contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline, they have a hotline that's open 24/7. And that number is 800-799-7233. You can also text to them at 88788. They have an official website where you can also do chats there. So, because some people, I think, sometimes feel like they can't really go to maybe somebody in their family or, it's too, some might feel some embarrassment. I think I know, and I can relate to Tay in the sense of the abusive stuff verbally, more or less. Only had one situation where I had a guy lay a hand on me. And but it's like sometimes that mental abuse can be just as damaging as what the physical abuse can be on somebody. So, but if you know somebody that needs help, or even if you sense something might not be right with somebody, and you could say, "Hey, this is something I saw that really made sense," and this was on Facebook where it was a picture of Heath Ledger, and in the background was like a bunch of people sitting at this table, and it must have been at some event or something, but there was nobody kind of sitting around his table. And the caption on that photo said, you could have all the fame, you can have all, and people could do this and that, but do they ever really ask, are you happy? So I think that's a really important word and question now to ask people that, especially if you think that they might be going through something. It's like, look, are you happy? Is everything okay? and if they can open up to you, great. If not, and you just sense something might be wrong, then just tell them, there's help out there,
And another disclaimer, we are not licensed psychiatrists or psychologists or therapists or counselors. If you feel that you have some of these symptoms, definitely go see somebody who is trained in diagnosing this type of stuff. Don't be diagnosing yourself, because I know that I have done that plenty of times before. Where, I look up
internet.
I look up one symptom on Google and pretty soon I'm dying. So, so like I said, if you're experiencing any of these symptoms, definitely look into seeing a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a licensed professional. So that's that. So I'm going to get into some definitions, because I do think it's important to kind of break it down so you can have a better understanding of this type of stuff. So I have the definition for trauma, and it's a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. So, that can cover a lot of different things, and I'm going to get into that. So Dawn has joined us. Hi, Dawn. Dr. Google isn't reliable.
Right, yeah.
Definitely not. So, Dawn, I know that you just hopped on. So our topic tonight is definitely a more serious topic. We're discussing trauma and PTSD in regards to relationships. So basically all that we were saying is, if you feel that you have, the symptoms of PTSD or trauma, please go see a licensed professional, such as a psychiatrist or psychologist. Don't be self-diagnosing yourself. So that's basically all that we were saying. So trauma, it's a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. In case you didn't know, like, the official meaning of that, I felt like that was kind of important to touch on. So trauma symptoms, some different symptoms that you can have whenever you have trauma or you've experienced like a traumatic experience, can be panicked when reminded of the trauma, being easily upset or angry, extreme alertness, also sometimes called hypervigilance, disturbed sleep or a lack of sleep, irritability or aggressive behavior, finding it hard to concentrate, including on simple or everyday tasks, and also being jumpy or easily startled. So those are just some of the symptoms that you might have if you've experienced a traumatic experience. So I felt that that was kind of important to go over that so you can kind of have a little bit of an understanding. So the next definition I'm going to go over is post-traumatic stress disorder, which I was actually diagnosed as having this whenever I went to go see a psychiatrist, because I had a lot of trouble focusing and I just felt like my brain was never shutting down. So I've actually been diagnosed as having PTSD by a psychiatrist just because of my brain, like not stopping. So I can kind of understand like this one. So it's a disorder in which a person has difficulty recovering after experiencing or witnessing a terrifying event. The condition may last months or years, with triggers that can bring back memories of the trauma accompanied by intense emotional and physical reactions. So that's kind of a little bit about PTSD and what the definition of it is and what it means.
Which obviously a lot of our soldiers suffer and are diagnosed with that from the effects of war.
Correct.
Which is just horrific. I can't imagine,
Yeah.
And, like they can hear a car could backfire and it could cause them to just like go back to that place. So, I do feel really bad for, I think sometimes they don't realize the effects, like going into something, you're thinking this is good for me or whatever. But then like a lot of these soldiers coming out of this, especially the ones that were over in Iraq and all, come back and then they're just like, it's just like really difficult for them because of that war and seeing what they saw and everything, doing what they had to do,
Which I'm not really going to open up about what caused my PTSD, but I can kind of touch on it a little bit. So I was bullied whenever I was in school. So I had a lot of trouble in school. Like, it was really hard for me to make friends, which I know that a lot of my viewers find this probably very surprising about me, because I'm actually a very different person now than I was back then. Two totally different people. I've actually changed, like, for the better. But back in the day I was kind of like this shy, awkward girl, and like I had a lot of trouble like fitting in with people and like relating to people. So like I felt like that kind of held me back, and I had a lot of issues with like bullying and different things like that. So I think a lot of that contributed to, my problems in school and like barely passing and stuff like that. Like a lot of that kind of all contributed to, one thing or another. But that's definitely like one of my, I guess, like PTSD type of things. So but like I said, I'm a totally different person now. I've worked through a lot of, you know, the issues that I have had in the past, but I'm still working on it, and I do still have triggers every now and then. But for the most part, I've worked through like a lot of it thanks to therapy.
Right, yeah.
Therapy has literally been a lifesaver.
Oh, yeah.
And I will 100% admit that therapy has been 100% a lifesaver, to kind of have somebody that I feel safe talking to,
right, yeah,
about like my deepest, darkest secrets, and somebody who's not going to judge me or post any sort of judgment towards me has definitely helped a lot, because I feel safe like talking to this person.
Yeah.
So that's definitely been a big factor in kind of helping me dissect things. So whenever you have PTSD, that got really deep. I apologize.
Okay, girl.
We just Tay kind of spilled her soul there, but
talking and telling all.
So anyway, there was some chat going on, so I'm just going to read some of it. Okay, so okay, Dawn said she went back and listened to it. She said that's her specialty, mental health. I just remembered that that's what you studied in school, now that I think of it. So you probably are very familiar with like a lot of this type of stuff.
Yeah.
She's had 9 years of education in mental health.
Oh, nice.
I had actually just forgotten.
We should probably be asking you questions.
I know. You should probably be coming up on panel here and, chatting with us, because I feel like
give us your thoughts.
Yeah, we may have some time later where we can come up and have you offer your input. So some different symptoms of PTSD that people may experience. So in the behavioral aspect, agitation, irritability, hostility, hypervigilance, I have a lot of that. Self-destructive behavior or social isolation, which I know that you guys think that I am this like super outgoing person, and I'm not really like afraid to just like talk to people. But I do experience social isolation from time to time.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, I feel like it's kind of hard for me to relate to people that I don't know sometimes.
Right.
Oh, but yeah. I think that, that there's probably everybody that experiences a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think I've had some of that too. And I'm usually, like you said, you know me, I'm like,
Cece knows no strangers.
Like, I will talk to anybody and everybody, and like we're at the beach and I'm like down there. I think I like conversations with 2 different ladies and probably talk
about Pilates. I remember.
I can always talk about Pilates, but yeah, like I'm gonna talk to everybody kind of thing. And I think because I got that really. My mom was like this very driven woman, and my mom and I were very close, and I lost her in 2016, but she was like somebody that could do anything. She voiced her opinion. She didn't hold back. She fought like school boards on issues that were affecting me as a child growing up in my school.
She's
and everything.
Like the perfect PTO mom.
Yeah, she like, you know,
I love it.
And she fought city council on a matter that affected her neighborhood. So like this woman was like non-stoppable. And I think that's something I kind of got from her, and not only that, just being like, she would talk to everybody too.
Yeah. Which I've kind of gotten that from my dad, my social thing, because my dad's a very social person. But yeah, so that's that. The psychological, I guess, symptoms of PTSD would be flashback, which I have that. Fear, I have that sometimes too. Severe anxiety, I definitely have that. Or mistrust, which I have that too. So I kind of fit the bill there. For moods, you could have loss of interest or pleasure in activities, guilt or loneliness, sleep, insomnia, or nightmares. And it's also common to have emotional detachment or unwanted thoughts, which, that's what I said about the brain that doesn't slow down.
Right, yeah.
Unwanted thoughts definitely contribute to that. So, just some other signs, I guess, of PTSD. Vivid flashbacks, so you feel like the trauma is happening right now, which I've had that. Intrusive thoughts or images, nightmares, intense distress. If I could talk, that'd be good. Intense distress at real or symbolic reminders of trauma, and physical sensations such as pain, sweating, nausea, or trembling, which I definitely have like the sweating part of it. I know whenever I get like really nervous, I do have a tendency to like sweat a little bit. So I definitely can understand that. So we're going to dig into how PTSD affects relationships. So here's a little bit of info that I have on that. So the symptoms of PTSD can cause problems with trust, closeness, communication, and problem solving. These problems may affect the way the survivor acts with others. In turn, the way a loved one responds to him or her affects the trauma survivor. A circular pattern can develop that may sometimes harm relationships, which I have experienced that, I've come off of like a really bad relationship where I had, a lot of these, problems with trust and all that. And it's like whenever I get into a new relationship, like it's kind of hard for me to tell whenever somebody is being 100% genuine, and they're being 100% real. So it is hard for me to trust new people that I'm dating. It may take me a little bit longer to trust somebody that I'm dating because of certain things that I have been through, which, and I think if somebody really cares about you and they want to be with you, in my opinion, they'll do whatever they can to kind of reassure you and be there for you, is what I think.
Oh, for sure.
So, but I'm probably the person that's least qualified to give relationship advice, but that's that. So, do people with PTSD sabotage relationships? So this is just some little bits of info that I kind of found interesting. That was kind of interesting. That was on TV. Sorry, we're watching something.
Something's on in the background. We
don't
know what it is. And the girl's just shaking her ha-has at the camera.
Anyway.
There, yeah, okay. Oh, that's the guy that was, what was his?
Dr. Ken.
Yeah.
That's what I call him. Okay. So do people with PTSD sabotage relationships? So avoidance symptoms may cause one to disassociate and neglect relationships. Hypervigilance can lead to sleep and concentration problems, which then can negatively affect one's relationships. A false sense of reality can completely take over one's life, including their relationships, which I've definitely experienced, a lot of that. And a lot of it was actually from a relationship that I was in where I almost got married, which, thank God that he kind of showed his true colors and that never transpired.
Tay and I have that in common because I was engaged to one too, and that wedding didn't happen. And
yeah,
my family hated this guy, which sucked because there's nothing like when your family doesn't like the guy that you feel like you were head over heels and this is like your soulmate. Because I felt like he was my soulmate. Like we had a connection and all that. And a lot of my family saw him as being kind of like a little manipulative in how he treated me. And I really didn't think that was the case. and I try to stand my ground with him because I'm the type of girl that like, I like my own time. I like my space. I like my girl time and all this and that. And he was this type of guy that wanted to be stuck up my ass 24/7.
That's
No
never gonna
lie.
work whenever it's
And
like that.
always wanted me to spend time with him and everything. And that was really difficult because I like having my other time. And that's probably why I've been single for so long and not in a relationship. It's because I just value my time. I don't like it. I feel like if I can control where my heart's going and who's breaking my heart, then I'm going to try to control that. And that's just really not even getting involved with anybody right now, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like, I guess I put out my, you know, I told God, this is what I prayed about one time where I kind of said to God in the, you know, haha sense. It's like, look, if you're just going to send me one, just send me the right one. Don't send me any other bullshit ones or any ones that are going to waste my time and break my heart. Just send me the right one. And that's the one I'll take, but I don't want any other ones, you know?
So yeah. You know, my ex-fiance, that's what I refer to him as because we were engaged for a while, did actually start like the cause of my relationship PTSD. You know, and that's kind of because he never like reassured me about anything. Like anytime we had an argument, like it was always my fault.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and he was very, you know, manipulative and, you know, there was a lot of gaslighting, which if nobody's really aware of what gaslighting is, it's basically whenever you make somebody like question reality. So, you know, there's usually like a lot of lying and accusations and stuff like that. So, you know, that's what kind of triggered like my whole relationship PTSD. And, you know, I've worked through a lot of that in therapy, but you know, it's still very hard for me to tell whenever a guy is being 100% genuine or if they're kind of just like telling me bullshit.
Right. Oh yeah. Exactly.
To get with me
Yeah.
so they can get some sort of gain in one way or another.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it is
That's why
kind
I
of
don't
difficult for
bother.
me. Yeah. Maybe I think I need to start like not bothering as
I know,
well.
right? Yeah.
Because I know that some of our viewers were kind of a little bit in tune with what was going on. You know, that great guy that I was dating turned out to be not so much a great guy. I'm not going to slander his name on the internet, but you know,
let's just say though that she found out early enough.
I did.
You know, and that's the thing. And it better to know now than invest more of your time, your emotions, and
you know, because it got to a point where we were just like arguing like every week, and it would be like a big blowout from like the both of us, where it's like he would get mad and like hang up on me. And then, you know, like I would be crying and upset. So it just wasn't good. I felt like, I felt like, you know, and it wasn't completely his fault. I'm not going to completely blame him because I definitely have my issues as well, you know, and I'm well aware of the issues that I have, you know, but we just weren't good for each other. I felt like we were really just setting each other off. And I think that if I would have stayed, it wouldn't have been a very wise choice.
Right, yeah. You knew emotionally that wasn't a good thing.
Yeah. So
good to be able to identify and move beyond and past that.
Right. Know? Especially because like all the arguing and stuff, like I said, that was kind of a big trigger for me. Like I kind of felt like
takes you back
I was going through some stuff that I had already previously went through, and it was kind of scaring me, to be quite honest. Yeah. So I was just like, I need to just kind of step away here. So that's what I chose to do. So
proud of Tay-Tay.
Yes,
proud of my girl.
Thank you. Does PTSD cause unstable relationships? So the symptoms of PTSD can include flashbacks, depression, anxiety, shame, anger, and relationship problems, which I can understand how it can. But like I said, I feel like if a guy really cares about you and all of that, I feel like he will be there for you and he will be willing to just like work through whatever, you know, needs to be worked through, and he will be there for you and kind of listen and reassure you that everything's okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of think, So what do people with PTSD need in a relationship? Here we go. So be sensitive and empathetic to their emotions, which I kind of touched on that. Offer comfort and warmth, especially during flashbacks or times of intense anxiety, which I have felt like in my past relationships, I unfortunately haven't gotten that sense of comfort. So I feel like that's why it is kind of rough for me at times. So know that it is okay to walk away. Romantic partners and other loved ones are not trained therapists and are not equipped to deal with all the issues that PTSD may bring, which I completely understand that too.
Yeah.
But I do think, sensitivity and empathy is definitely a big, big thing. So, are people with PTSD hard to love? So, it is hard for many people with PTSD to relate to other people in a healthy way when they have problems with trust, closeness, and other important components of relationships. However, social support can help those with PTSD, and professional treatment, which therapy has, like I said, worked wonders, can guide them toward healthier relationships. So, therapy definitely works wonders. So, why is dating so hard with PTSD? So, your partner may have intrusive memories of the event. So, this could be flashbacks, nightmares, or unwanted images that negatively impact them. This could also look like somatic intrusions, where their bodies suddenly have a response that feels similarly to how they felt during the traumatic moment. I've had that too. Trying to see here. Because I just kind of noticed that like a lot of this is going hand in hand here that I kind of looked up. But we're going to get into like the trauma side of it. So, how does trauma affect your relationships? So, living through traumatic events may result in expectations of danger, betrayal, or potential harm within new or old relationships. Survivor may feel vulnerable and confused about what is safe, and therefore it may be difficult to trust others, even those whom they trusted in the past. Which I even have that. I feel like I have, I guess, vulnerable and confusion and difficult to trust, even with like friendships and like making
Right,
friends.
yeah.
I feel like
I think sometimes when you go through stuff
yeah,
with someone else, it does kind of take an effect on how you may have friendships with other people. You know what I mean?
I definitely think so.
How you're treated is gonna affect,
right
to some degree.
So, can trauma affect your ability to love? So, childhood trauma can impact relationships because we learn about emotional bonds early in life. So, when people we depend on for survival hurt us or aren't present, it can impact how we view human connection. Age can play a role too. Our brains develop rapidly from newborn to toddlerhood, which I actually studied early childhood. I can tell you that from the time you're a newborn till you're a toddler, there's so many things going on.
Right, yeah.
So I can definitely understand that. So the 5 symptoms of relationship PTSD, flashbacks is number 1, repetition, self-medicating, blowing things out of proportion, and obsessive thoughts. I definitely do have some of that. So what are trauma triggers and relationships? So here are a few examples of complex PTSD triggers and relationships. So too much stimulation, large crowds, loud sounds, and bright lights can be triggering for people with complex PTSD. This can be challenging for people who are in relationships with partners who enjoy life events such as music and sports, which I do get the overstimulated. I completely understand that. Sometimes I just want to be not around people,
right?
And go
decompress mode.
I call it de-people. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
And especially like the field of work that I do, I'm around people like all the time. So sometimes, there'll be days after work where I just want to go home and just like take a hot bath and not talk to anybody, which, my people who are close to me understand that, and they know that, it's nothing against them. It's just I need to de-people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I was like that when I worked in an office where I was in contact with everybody all day, nonstop for like 8-9 hours a day around people. Oh yeah. Like, thank God I'm not in that anymore. So
Right. So, I mean, I love working with people, don't get me wrong, but it definitely just has its moments
takes its
where
toll on you.
where you kind of just want to like not deal with people
Right.
sometimes. Let's see. Oh yeah, emotional intelligence is key. That's what Dawn had to offer to the conversation. So, behavioral signs of unhealed trauma. So, trauma can lead to behavioral idiosyncrasies. I'm surprised I could pronounce that. So, for instance, you may avoid places or activities that make you think about an event, which I've done that.
Right. Yeah.
You may, which, to this day, I will still not go to the restaurant that my fiance proposed me to.
Yeah.
Proposed to me at.
Yeah.
My ex-fiance, I will not go to that restaurant anymore because it's just too much for me. But yeah, they have good food, but it's just too much for me. So does trauma affect intimacy? So your trauma might be impacting your sex life negatively if sex feels demanding, aggressive, or triggers anger and controlling behaviors. You may find that withdrawal, avoidance, or passive interaction typifies your sexual interactions, which I've had some of that, but it's, mainly just because of how partners have treated me is basically why I've had some of that. So, some examples of trauma in relationships: physical abuse, including direct physical harm, not physical farm, physical harm, or threats of physical harm. Sexual abuse, including rape, other sexual assault, or sexual coercion. Emotional abuse, which, me and Cece say that we've had that.
With that, yeah.
Including gaslighting, which I went over that, manipulation, or control, which I have dealt with a lot of that type of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Crazy Horse is here. Hey, Crazy Horse. Good to see you. You'll have to go back and listen because it's kind of been pretty informative, I think. So, the behaviors of a trauma victim. So, delayed responses to trauma can include persistent fatigue. I know I have that. Sleep disorders, nightmares, fear of reoccurrence, anxiety focused on flashbacks, depression and avoidance of emotions, sensations or activities that are associated with the trauma, even remotely. So, the hidden effects of trauma on relationships. So, trauma can affect relationships in these types of ways. It can affect the emotions, the difficulty trusting and self-reliance, difficulty trusting and self-reliance, fear of being alone and intimacy, nature of communication style. So that means like using humor to deflect, self-deprecation, demanding, yelling, or having fragmented discussions or secrets can just be some of the examples of that.
I've done that in the relationship with my ex-fiance.
Yes. So insecure, anxious attachment, and codependencies. So that's difficulty establishing secure attachments to others by keeping others close. I think I've had that type of stuff. Definitely.
You know what? I actually had that, come to think of it.
Yeah.
Which makes me want to say now, sometimes I guess that wouldn't apply in the sense if it's just somebody you're romantically involved with. But like when my grandmother died, that I was very close to, and she was like a very religious woman. Like she lived her life daily in Christ, and she had a stroke, and it took her out, and she was like she didn't know who she was after that, and we had to kind of watch her die for about 17 days. And it was so bad. And I was so mad at God because I thought, okay, like this woman, like was your right-hand person here on earth. Like nobody else in my life I'd ever came across that was this dedicated to God. And she went this way, and it was so sad. And so I then started emotionally pulling away from my other family because her death was so hard, and I thought, okay, well, I was so close to her, and I'm so close to my mom and dad. So what's going to happen when something happens to one of them? Like, how am I going to deal with that? And that's when that's the first time I ever experienced depression and was diagnosed with being depressed. And it took somebody to go to and talk to because I just didn't realize. I was like, what's going on here? Like, this is really not me. Like, I would go home, close my blinds, not talk to anybody, just go to work, come home, go to work, come home. So repetitive. And yeah, so.
So yeah, dismissive, avoidant attachment, and counter dependency. So that's difficulty establishing secure attachment to others by keeping others at a distance. So this could be sabotaging healthy relationships, fear of vulnerability and intimacy, emotions are in control, and lack of a core self are just kind of some of those. So now I just have some statistics, and then that will kind of end like my segment of it. I've been talking for a while. I know, guys. I've had a lot to say here. So around 70% of adults in the United States have experienced at least one traumatic event in their lifetime. Up to 20% of those people go on to develop PTSD. Approximately 5% of Americans, more than 13 million people, have PTSD at any given time. So just some other different statistics. Let's see. Approximately 8.7 of all adults, 1 in 13 people, will develop PTSD at some point. And then approximately 3.6% of adults in the U.S. suffer from PTSD in a given year. And of people in the U.S. who experience a traumatic event, 1 in 5 will develop the condition. And 36.6, which that's actually a pretty big number, of PTSD cases are severe, 33.1 are moderate, and 30.2 are mild. And that's according to a study that was done by Harvard in 2007. So that's kind of a dated study.
Yeah.
I would like to see
I was going to
what
say,
it would be like
yeah,
now.
because some of those numbers I thought were kind of low. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine now it's probably a little bit higher, unfortunately. So now some statistics about like women. So around 1 in 9 women will get PTSD at some point in their lifetime. Women are around twice as likely as men to develop the disorder, which I think it's because we're more emotional creatures. So I think that could kind of be why this happens. At least that's my opinion. And it might be an unpopular one, but that's kind of my opinion with that. Surprisingly, 23% of women in the military report being sexually assaulted.
Oh, I can see that, yeah.
And 55% of female veterans and 38% of male veterans experience sexual harassment while in the military. So now some different age statistics for PTSD. So PTSD in adults was highest in 45 to 59-year-olds in 2001 to 2003. Which that's probably really different now too. PTSD in adolescents was highest in female adolescents aged 13 to 14 in 2001 to 2004. And PTSD prevalence was lowest in adults ages 60 or older, and that was in 2001 to 2003. So just some different ones about race. So a study found that the lifetime prevalence of PTSD was highest among Blacks, intermediate among Hispanics and whites, and lowest among Asians. So that's kind of a little bit interesting to me, I think. PTSD statistics by trauma. So the trauma and then the percentage of people who will likely develop PTSD. Sexual assault, 49% will develop PTSD. Severe physical assault, 32 will develop PTSD, 32%. Serious accidents, which I've been through that, been in a couple of car accidents. 16.8 will develop PTSD, which I think I do have some PTS triggers because of that. Shoot and stabbing victims, 15.4. The unexpected death of a loved one, 14.3. Parents of children with life-threatening illnesses, 10.4. Witnesses of violence, 7.3. And natural disaster victims, 3.8. So PTSD in adults. So in the past year, PTSD affected around 3.6 of American adults over the age of 18, according to the studies. So I'm going to cover like one more thing, and that's PTSD and domestic violence, which, they can kind of go hand in hand sometimes. The connection between PTSD and domestic violence is clear, even if PTSD might not always develop immediately following abuse. There are several factors which influence the probability of domestic violence victims developing post-traumatic stress disorder, including the severity and duration of violence and the age of the victim. So whether or not someone feels their life is in danger, they can also influence the chance of PTSD developing in the victim. The intense emotional connection victims might have with the abuser is probably a big part of what makes the violence such a traumatic experience for the victim. So that's kind of all the information that I have, which I think I covered quite a bit.
Tay covered a lot.
So let's see. My eyes are kind of dry, so I'm trying to see what's being said here. Oh, Dawn's just saying that some of her comments won't make sense by the time I read them. It's okay. We'll figure it out, and you can talk to me later about it if you want to. Anyway, do you have some things you would like to share?
I just have a little bit of stuff. And this is just kind of based on why people stay sometimes in unhealthy relationships. Because of course, sometimes if you're on the outside and you're oh, I don't understand why that person could be going through that or staying in that. It's really, a lot's going on there, and a lot of people are in there and stay for certain reasons. So a lot of people stay because of kids, there's children in the relationships.
Yeah, because that's kind of a big factor.
Right. Yeah. So, and, they've invested a lot of time on it. So it's kind of well, we don't want to really throw in the towel because we've been in this for so long,
Right.
And especially I think with women, I think they more see that in the sense of oh, they might not be able to find somebody else or something like that. So they're going to be the ones less likely to kind of take that break out of it, as opposed to a man who would be well, I wouldn't have, a problem, getting somebody else. But
right.
So of course, society normalizes unhealthy behavior. So people may not understand that their relationship is abusive. When you think that unhealthy or abusive behaviors are normal, it's hard to identify your relationship as abusive, and therefore there's no reason to seek help. Emotional abuse destroys your self-esteem, making it feel impossible to start fresh. So it says oftentimes,
I agree.
Yeah. People in emotionally abusive relationships may not understand that they are being abused because there's no violence involved. Just because you think somebody's not laying a hand on you doesn't mean you're not being abused, but there's different levels of abuse. And
there are,
like I said, the one time that happened to me and the guy kind of put his hand on my throat, this was somebody I was in a relationship with for a while, year, 3 years, I think, or so. But he could drink beer all day long, but you give the boy liquor and he turned into a mean thing,
like a monster.
Yeah, it was unreal. So there was a situation that got somewhat out of control, but I remember just kind of fighting back, I guess, that you won't ever do that to me again. And he never did that to me again. So, but it says many people may dismiss or downplay emotional abuse because they don't think it's as bad as physical abuse. It's hard for those in abusive relationships to leave their partners after they've continuously been made to feel worthless and like there's no better option for themselves. The cycle of abuse after every abusive incident becomes a makeup honeymoon phase. Like, and I was there. I went through those. Like, oh, I'm sorry. There was actually a situation with that same guy that he made. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but he made a really big scene at this event that he actually participated in, and it involved like motorcycles. I'll just say that. I'll leave it at that level. And it was not near where we lived. And so when it happened, he like basically, I mean, he should have went to jail for what happened, but I was able to get him out of that situation. And then prayed to God to get me home because I was driving this truck, had no clue where I was because this was like before cell phones and GPS and all that kind of crap. And I was even driving a truck that was a stick, which I wasn't very familiar driving a stick, but God willing, he got me back home. But then when we got home that night, I like put him in the bathtub and was in there like being all sweet to him in the bathtub. He didn't hurt me, but he about made the scene and like literally almost threatened to kill these people at this event. So it was bad, but here I was feeling bad for him. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
I've been in that kind of stuff. Like
I've been in relationships where men have used sex as kind of a manipulation tactic. Like we have gotten into a fight and like we've gotten upset with each other.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, like let's go do this and
right, yeah.
This will make it all better.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make it all better. I hate
no, not at all.
No.
And yeah.
In the moment it might, but like
right.
If we're talking long term, it doesn't make things any better.
Because it was crazy. And I think reality that next morning slightly did send over me because I was like, that should have just not happened last night. So okay, so a couple other things. It's dangerous to leave, like very dangerous. Some people are fearful, many times leaving an abusive relationship is not only emotional and difficult, but can be life-threatening. Especially if you have kids. Sometimes the other opposite person can hold that over you, and the other person saying, well, I'll take the kids. So they can threaten you with the children. It says most dangerous times in abusive relationships is post-breakup. Women are 70 times more likely to be killed in the weeks after leaving their abusive partner than at any other time they're in the relationship. So that's another thing too, men will threaten, like, will you leave me and I'll kill you kind of thing, which is not a very, not nice thing to have laying over your head if you think you leave this person.
Not at all.
So it's not just hard to break up safely. It's also hard to escape the cycle of control. People in abusive relationships often attempt to break up with their partner several times before the breakup actually sticks. On average, a person in an abusive relationship will attempt to leave 7 times before finally leaving for good. People in abusive relationships often attempt to break up with their partner several times before the breakup actually sticks. I think that was a double sentence.
Yeah.
On average, a person in an abusive relationship, it's repetitive. So again, society perpetrates a ride or die mindset. Those in unhealthy or abusive relationships might stay with their partner or get back together after a breakup because they feel pressure to not give up, forgive or forget, ride it out. Pop culture glamorizes being a ride or die for your friends and partner, making people out to be in the wrong for leaving their partner. And while being loyal is a great thing, a good friend or partner would never endanger or hurt you.
Right.
They feel personally responsible for their partner or their behavior. After a conflict, an abuser will turn the situation around and make their partner feel guilty or as though they are somewhat at fault. And that, again, goes back to the gaslighting that Tato was talking about. So, I think she's covered, and some of these sound a little similar to what she's already covered. So,
hey, Donna K. Donna K says, hey.
Hey, Donna K. So, and then the last thing, again, I think I might have said something like this, but there are a lot of elements that influence a person's decision to stay. And while seeking help to get out of these relationships is the most important thing, blaming someone in an abusive relationship is never okay. There's a big difference between judgment and responsibility. While someone might have used bad judgment by staying in an unhealthy or dangerous situation, it does not mean that they are responsible or asking for the abuse perpetrated against them. So Again, the numbers I mentioned earlier about the National Domestic Violence Hotline number 24/7, if you need to call or know someone that might need to call, write this number down, is 1-800-799-7233. And you could also text START to 88788. And they have a website if you need to look that website up, and also do chat as well. So if you or someone you know needs help with that, please give them those numbers and have them reach out for help.
Yes, definitely, because you shouldn't have to suffer.
No,
especially, due to that type of thing. So I think that's probably about all we have for tonight. I know that we covered a lot of information.
Well, Tay did a lot of her research too, so we felt like it was, or something we needed to get out there and talk about. So
yeah, because I feel like it's becoming more and more of a thing. Right now.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of why I wanted to kind of bring it to light and kind of break it down and talk about it. So,
and next week, either Tay can take it upon herself to do one all by herself, because I will be on vacation.
You may just get a surprise.
So Tay will be popping up doing one next week on her own.
Maybe I'll do another poll and see what you guys want to talk about.
Yeah, she could pull you out. Pull you out.
Yeah. It'll just be one chick tell all next week.
There you go. How about that?
Yes. Unless I can get my mom to get on and talk.
I really think you should try to get your mom to do it. I really think she
might. She might.
You should do that.
Give her a couple beers and she might.
There you go. All right, you have to take the mic home. Take the mic.
I don't know. I think my laptop does pretty good sound wise.
Oh, really?
I might be okay where I don't need the microphone.
Oh, there you go.
So it might be a pretty legit quality where
we still have that. What is that thing we have that we still haven't used? We need to pull out again.
Where we can do like call in and
the something. We have this board thing that I ordered off Amazon when we first started doing our cast. We haven't even used it. Damn it, what's it called now? It's got me mad.
I don't remember.
I've had a lot of wine tonight, so my brain's kind of foggy now. Transporter. It's not a transporter.
Yeah, it's hey, we could have called it that.
It's something.
Transponder.
Something like that.
No, transponder I think is different too.
Either, so.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll have to play around with that because I think
we could have call-ins. I like to start having some call-ins.
Yeah, I mean, we could even get like a text now number and like get people to call in that way so they can like remain anonymous.
Right, yeah.
So I think like we could do that. It could be like Tay and Cece on the hotline.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, or something like that,
Oh yeah, we'll have to do it.
Yeah, it could get really interesting once we figure out more about the fun things to do.
Yes.
So yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you guys too for coming and joining and listening and all. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so I think I'll probably pop up at some point next week and hang out with y'all. So
I'll be on the beach.
Yeah, she'll be on the beach sipping something strong, probably.
Exactly.
But yeah. Okay, so Crazy Horse just asked something. Who's that Chocolate Rain guy? Tay Zonde is the Chocolate Rain guy. Have you ever heard that song?
No.
I feel like I should play it just because Crazy Horse mentioned it. So we are gonna play it.
We should have a theme song. We need to try to come up with maybe
a
theme song. Well, we did talk about that at one time, that we would like have music where we were coming in like to do our cast, but
I know. Well, we have musically inclined friends.
That's what
I don't know what
gadgets for that I can't remember the damn name.
Yeah, we have musically inclined friends. Yeah.
I'm gonna look that shit up now.
All right, here's Chocolate Rain.
All right, you do that, and I'm gonna find what I'm talking about.
Oh, here's the dang ads. It's Not All By Myself. That's a different song. They've been using that for everything now. I know that Tay Zonde, that was on. Oh, here. You've heard it, I guarantee you. He was on Tosh. Tosh.0 is making fun of it.
stay dry and others feel the pain. Chocolate rain. A baby
But yeah,
born
look.
alive before the
That's what he
Oh
looks
my
like.
rain. The school books say it can't be here again. Chocolate rain. The prisons make you wonder where it went. Chocolate rain. Build a tent and say the well will dry. Chocolate rain. Zoom the camera out and see the light. Chocolate rain.
But yeah, Tosh.0 I know made fun of it back in the day and like made like a new music video to it and it was kind of funny and all that. But it's amazing the kind of stuff you can find on the internet for sure. That's all I gotta
Right.
say. There's something for every type of person, I feel like, on the internet.
It's the Monocaster. That's
Monocaster,
damn
that's
it, I
what
knew
it's
I was
called.
gonna find it. It was driving me crazy. Okay, the Monocaster.
So yeah, we're gonna play around with that Monocaster.
We'll figure it out.
Yep. But yeah, it was Tay Zonday for the Chocolate Rain song. But yeah, I'll be popping up next week with some type of subject.
Y'all just pray that with me that the hurricane
Yeah,
stays its ass
'cause it-
away.
Yeah, because it's
Please
supposed to
don't
be.
let it remember again.
Knock on wood. I hope it don't hit like it's supposed
No,
to.
no, right. And everybody goes, why do you go to the beach on hurricane season? We've always gone, it's like 28 years in the making, and only 1 year have we really been ran off and not been able to go. So, we go this time of year because all the kids are damn back in school and there's not a shitload of people down there.
Oh, this is the best
So,
time to go, probably.
That's where we go. Even
Way
though I live
after
at the
Labor
beach,
Day.
yes, I do go to another beach on vacation. We go to Edisto Beach. So that's where I'll be.
All right. So yeah, Cece will be on sipping on the beach.
I'll be on the
sitting
beach.
on the beach sipping something strong.
There
and,
you go.
And I'll be bringing you a new podcast. So
Sweet.
So tune in and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to email us, twochickstellall@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And I think that's about it. So
Y'all have a good week.
yes, and be safe out there because I know times are crazy.
That's right.
It's Tay Tay signing off.
And Cece.
Bye, y'all.
Night.